You pride yourself on being a calm, balanced individual, right? Yet, in the presence of one specific person, you find yourself behaving in ways that feel, well, completely out of character. You get agitated, you get defensive, you get loud, and later, you're left wondering, what just happened? Why does your personality seem to glitch only in the presence of this one specific dynamic?
Here's the thing. That glitch, it's not random, and it's definitely not a flaw in your character. This is the core paradox of what's called reactive conditioning. And what we're going to break down today is how this is no accident. It's actually a calculated, deliberate training program for your emotions. It's like a script written by someone else where you've somehow been trained to play a role you never even auditioned for. All right, so let's get into it. Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we're going to give a name to that unexplained reaction. Then, we'll pull apart the training program itself. What are its core pillars? From there, we'll map out the three-phase trap they use and look at the psychology of why it's so effective. And most importantly, we're going to cover the concrete steps for how you can break free. We'll wrap it all up with the single most powerful idea to remember: your composure is your leverage. Okay, first things first. Let's put a formal name on this confusing, really frustrating experience. You see, understanding the framework is the very first step toward dismantling it. This isn't just you two not getting along. It's a specific, identifiable dynamic at play.
That dynamic is called reactive conditioning. You can think of it as a manipulative framework where the entire goal is to provoke an emotional response in you. But why? What's the point? Well, the purpose is to achieve something called reactionary displacement. The idea is to get you to react so intensely that your reaction becomes the new topic of conversation, effectively pushing aside or displacing whatever the manipulator originally did wrong.
And that leads to the ultimate prize for the manipulator, something called defensive impunity. Seriously, think of it as their get-out-of-jail-free card for bad behavior. By making your reaction the problem, they shield themselves from any and all accountability, right? If you're yelling, nobody's paying attention to the lie they just told. If you're crying, the focus is suddenly off the promise they just broke. They literally create a storm in you just so they can hide in the eye of it.
So, how is this training program actually built? I mean, how do they install these emotional buttons in you in the first place? It's not just one tactic, it's a whole system, and it's built on three very distinct behavioral pillars.
These pillars are the subtle stimulus, which kind of sets the stage, the logic bypass, which triggers the reaction, and the accountability shift, which is the final, let's call it the checkmate move. Let's break down each one.
The training always starts subtly. The first pillar isn't about some big, obvious attack. No, it's about repetitive, deniable stressors. Think about things like backhanded compliments, or those pointed jokes that aren't really funny. Or maybe they just consistently forget things that are super important to you. Each one is small enough that if you call them on it, you look like you're being overly sensitive. But the cumulative effect is incredibly powerful. It's designed to prime your nervous system, keeping you in this constant low-grade state of fight or flight. And right here, this is where the pivot happens. Once your nervous system is all primed and on edge, the manipulator executes the logic bypass. They poke and they poke and they poke until you finally react. And the second you raise your voice, get emotional, or show any frustration, they do a complete 180. They instantly adopt this calm, rational, almost condescending persona. They'll say things like, "See, this is why I can't even talk to you," or "Look at how emotional you're getting." They have totally bypassed the logic of what led to your reaction in the first place.
And that leads directly to the third and final pillar, the accountability shift. Now the conversation is no longer about their initial provocation, the insult, the lie, whatever it was. The entire focus of the interaction has now shifted onto your so-called inappropriate reaction. Your emotional response is now Exhibit A in the case against you, and their original action is completely forgotten. They've successfully made your reaction the problem.
Okay, so let's move on to the mechanism itself and see how this all builds into a predictable and devastatingly effective three-phase trap. Understanding this sequence is absolutely key to seeing it coming and refusing to step into it.
So the trap unfolds across this timeline. It starts with neural priming, that's the loading phase. That's followed by trigger activation, which is the release. And it all concludes with narrative seizure, and that's where they take control. Phase 1, neural priming. This is the slow, methodical setup. All those subtle little stressors we talked about. They create a state of hypervigilance. Your brain is just constantly on alert, scanning for the next little jab.
And what this does is it effectively shortens what we can call your cognitive fuse. That's that crucial space between a stimulus and your response, where rational thought is supposed to happen. Over time, that fuse gets burned down so short that even a tiny little spark can cause an immediate explosion.
Next up is phase 2, trigger activation. And listen, this is not random. The manipulator has learned exactly which buttons to push, and they deploy that specific trigger strategically, almost always at the exact moment when they themselves are about to be held accountable for something. So just when you think you're about to corner them on a difficult truth, bam, they'll say the one thing they know will set you off, completely derailing the conversation and putting you on the defensive.
And that brings us to the final and most devastating move, narrative seizure. With you now all emotional and upset, the manipulator just completely ignores their initial provocation. They use your unstable reaction to seize control of the story. They can now frame themselves as the calm, patient victim who's just trying to deal with an irrational person. They've captured the narrative, and in that story, you are the only problem.
So why is this trap so incredibly effective? I mean, why do we fall for it? To understand that, we need to look at the psychology behind it. It works because it exploits a fundamental conflict between two powerful, competing human drives.
What's really happening is a clash of two opposing forces. The manipulator is driven by this desperate need for impunity. That's the freedom from consequences for their actions. You, on the other hand, are driven by a powerful and healthy drive for justice, that deep-seated need to see fairness and truth and accountability. This trap literally weaponizes your own sense of justice against you.
Now, what's happening in your brain is something called a limbic system hijack. Your limbic system is your emotional core. The manipulator's provocations are designed to bypass your rational brain and speak directly to this emotional brain. That outburst that you regret later, it's not a sign of instability. It's actually your limbic system's powerful, even if it's failed, attempt to scream for fairness and correct a profound injustice. And the real tragedy is that this very scream becomes the evidence they use to dismiss you entirely.
Okay, understanding the trap, the pillars, the psychology, that is the essential first step. But, knowledge is useless without action. So let's talk about how you can actually disarm this trap and reclaim your emotional sovereignty.
The core defensive concept, believe it or not, can be boiled down to a single number: 5. This represents the 5-second firewall. Remember how the whole manipulative process is designed to shorten your cognitive fuse? Well, your job is to consciously and deliberately rebuild it. It's all about creating a 5-second pause between their stimulus and your response, just to give your rational brain a chance to get back online.
And within that 5-second window, you have 3 incredibly powerful moves you can make. The first is an internal mental move called the observation shift. The second is a verbal tactic called the low energy response. And the third is a physical action, strategic disengagement.
Okay, let's make this super practical. When the provocation comes, use your 5 seconds for an observation shift. Instead of taking it personally, view it as a piece of data. Just think to yourself, there's the trigger. They're attempting to shift accountability now. This moves you from being an actor in their drama to an observer of their strategy. Next, use a low-energy response. Manipulators feed on emotional energy, so you have to starve them. Use a calm, maybe even a monotone voice. Give short, boring answers like, "I see," or "That's an interesting perspective." This denies them the fuel they're looking for. And finally, if you feel that emotional flood starting anyway, your best move is strategic disengagement. Just say, "I need to step away for a moment," and physically leave the room. You are not losing, you are ending their training session.
So the crucial point to remember from all of this really comes down to understanding where your real power lies in this dynamic. It's not in winning the argument. It's not in proving them wrong. It's somewhere else entirely.
This is the single most important lesson to internalize. Read it, remember it, maybe even write it down. The reaction is the goal of the provocation. Their entire strategy is built on getting that reaction from you. And therefore, your composure, your ability to stay calm and not respond in the way they expect, is not passivity. It is your ultimate leverage. When you withhold the reaction they've trained you to give, their entire framework just collapses. And this is the final thought I really want to leave you with. Breaking this cycle isn't just about learning a new set of tactics. It's about a fundamental shift in your own self-worth. It's about recognizing that your emotional energy is a precious, finite resource.
So what happens when you finally decide that your energy is far too valuable to be spent performing in someone else's toxic script? Well, that's the moment you stop being trained and you start reclaiming yourself.